Hello, fellow nerds. This is Deborah with Our Nerdiest Thing, and tonight I have a very special guest, author Geneva Monroe. Most days you can find Geneva wandering the streets of her small colonial town or snuggling up beside a fire with her husband, son, and two cats. No matter the location, she probably has a book in one hand and a macchiato in the other. We're like kindred souls over here. Over the past 20 years, Geneva has visited nearly every continent. She has spent hours exploring temples in Asia, being graced by the generosity of families who welcomed her into their home, danced on South America's shores, and climbed the mountains in Africa to watch the sunrise. It has been her greatest joy to explore the planet's amazing diversity and then share that with as many people as she can. This desire found a home in her debut novel Sun Serpent, and Geneva writes fantasy kingdoms with complex and nuanced cultures. She draws upon the visual language of the places she's traveled and combines them to create new landscapes. The end result is a world that feels familiar and yet captures the same wonder she felt during those first steps beyond the boundaries of her childhood home. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
I don't really know how to follow up with that. That intro is like actually really amazing. And I've read Sun Serpent and the sequel, and so I can see already where your travels have come into that
Well,
book.
thank you so much for reading.
Absolutely. Well, let's just get started. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey to becoming an author? Because when we met you at Imaginarium just 6 months ago, you weren't published yet.
I
So
was I was just published.
you
I
had
was I
just
had been
published.
published for a month.
So you've had
Um,
3 books come out since I've seen you then. So tell us a little bit about your journey.
okay, well, so I've been an avid reader forever. Somebody just recently put something up. It was like, what was the book that got you hooked on reading? And I was like, well, I guess I was 8.
What book was it?
Well, so the first book I can ever really remember choosing to read for myself, and like granted, we read Lord of the Rings like way back. Like the first book I ever remember reading was The Hobbit, and it
Mhm.
was like the book I would demand my mother read me over and over again. And even though I'm arachnophobic, I would always want Mirkwood with the spiders. Like that was I don't
Oh
know,
my
like I guess I
gosh.
was like a glutton for punishment, I
That
guess
part
back
gave me
then
bad
too.
dreams.
And but the first book I ever really chose to read for myself that I can really remember was Bram Stoker's Dracula. And I was 8. I read the whole thing cover to cover in like a week. And there was this illustration of Mina in it who looked exactly like my mother's old vocal coach. And she
Oh my
had this
gosh.
old photo of her when she was like 20. This woman was like 75, and one of those like glorious like women that, you know, with the white shawl that walks around with the feathers and stuff. She was just the most amazing woman. And she would had this picture and it looked just like the illustration of Mina from the copy of Dracula I was reading, or at least to my 8-year-old
Maybe
brain,
it
it
was
looked
her.
exactly like her. And so that was all it took for me to be like, vampires are real. And it became like this entire thing. So I was this like 8-year-old running around being like, vampires.
That is amazing. Yeah, I actually got started with vampires early too, but mine was Anne Rice.
Oh yeah. Then like Anne Rice was probably I was probably like 6 when I read Interview with a Vampire, and then
I know, right?
devoured all like, or I'm in 6th grade, not 6. That would be absurd. But definitely probably too young to be reading that stuff.
Yeah, I was telling someone the other day I read Amityville Horror at 12 and I did not sleep for weeks. I mean, weeks. And but back in the 80s, you just kind of did whatever you wanted.
Right, exactly.
There
Exactly. It was
weren't book
wild. It's the
ratings.
80s.
Right. Yeah, you just did whatever you wanted and then never slept and had
And
childhood
everybody was
trauma.
just like, you know what she's reading? It's a good thing.
Right. Exactly.
You know, like my
Exactly.
middle school teacher is just like, well, that's an interesting choice.
Right. Yeah. Well, your website describes you as writing pretty stabby things. How did you develop that style of writing? And can you tell us a little bit about what a stabby writing style is?
So the pretty stabby things came about. Somebody asked me to describe the book I was writing in 3 words. And that was when I was writing Sun Serpent. And
Mhm.
so I like really tried hard to think about how I would describe it. And so Illyria is a knife thrower, like a fire dancing, knife throwing acrobat, right? And so like knives are like her whole thing. And then the sun serpent dagger that she has is also this beautiful dagger. So I was like, well, I guess if I was going to describe sun serpent in 3 words, it would be pretty stabby things, you know?
That's a
And
really good
it's like
way
a
to explain that.
it's like a double, it's a double, you know, it's both her and the dagger. And then that just kind of developed further into the entire the entire style of writing that I do is all strong, powerful women. You know, I really wanted to write women who were strong from the beginning, that they
Mhm.
didn't need to figure out that they could be powerful, but knew straight up that they were confident, they were comfortable in their own skin with who they were already. And it's not that I like the self-discovery storyline too. I just feel like the majority of literature out there is like that. And
Right.
I wanted, and this might come from the fact that, you know, I'm 40. And so I've known who I am for a while now. And I wanted to connect with a character who also knew who she was.
Right.
And but still had room for growth.
Right. And I mean, so tell us a little bit about those books because I have to say that book begins with a hook, right? So I don't want to get too spoilerly, but the prince essentially is fighting his own father, right? That's essentially possessed. So can
Yeah.
you tell our listeners a little bit about this series and I mean why they should read it? Because I can tell them, but I would love to hear it from you.
Okay. Wow. Why you should read my book? Well, really, I wrote a book that I wanted to read. I'm still always kind of impressed that other people want to read this book because I wrote it so completely for me.
Hmm.
It was like I said, I wanted that strong, just really badass woman. You know, like I wanted her to just be this force. I wanted a man who would fall head over heels for her, but at the same time was had every swoony characteristic of every male lead I've ever loved. And
But you
I
know what?
wanted
She doesn't like immediately fall for it though, which I
no.
kind of like. She's like, yeah, I get it. I get why people would fall for you, but okay. Like, which I really like.
Yeah, I mean, like I think part of that too is because Illyria has such an allure of her own. She's been having so many instances where people have been throwing themselves at her that she's just so used to having people fawn that it just like does not even resonate on her list of things that she cares about. You
Hmm.
know, like that's not what makes her feel important. You know, there's a line in the second book where she talks about, you know, like how she's been told she's beautiful her whole life, but it's only in this one moment with Cal that she's ever actually felt beautiful.
Right.
And I think that is very core to the way that their relationship works, that when he's obviously, you know, flirting with her and complimenting her, that if anything is almost like a down for like
Right.
it's something that's turning her off. It's not something that's doing anything. She's not going to swoon over a compliment, you know? And but then these moments where he sees her for the person she really is and sees past all the glitz and the fancy colored hair and the powers and stuff, you know, that's when she really starts falling for him. And that it's those moments when she's always double checking herself and, you know, what am I actually thinking here? What am I actually feeling? Um, and so there's that. And then also I love books where the world that the story is in is just as magical and detailed as the characters and the plot itself. Like I love a story where the world they're in is almost just as important as what's happening.
Right.
And I really, when I started writing, that was actually where I started. Well, so when I started, Illyria started as my D&D character.
You can kind of tell she's a D&D character.
Yeah, she's based on my draconic sorceress.
Hmm. Definitely. I can see that.
And it was my first ever D&D campaign. It was right coming off the heels of COVID, and so we were still sort of staying inside. And my best friend and her husband and my husband just decided we were going to do family game night. And by the way, here, make a character. I'd never made a D&D character before. And so then I started doing this and they're like, okay, well, don't forget you need a backstory. I was like, okay, like how long? And they're like, I don't know, like a page. I was like, Okay. So I like started writing and then it like just kept going and going and going. And for like a month, I kept saying to everybody, I'm like, this girl is so cool. Like, I want to read her story so badly. And they'd be like, okay, so just write it already. I was like, I can't write a book. And they're like, you read like 100 books a year. I'm pretty sure you've got the background knowledge. If you want to write a book, you could probably try. And I don't know, just from there, it just kind of sprang into this whole other thing.
And who did you reach out to for resources? Were they other authors, or how did you get started with all of that, taking it from idea to page?
Well, first, what I really did was I just tried. I just wrote, and I wrote this one page. And it's the ironic part about all of this is the first scene I visualized and tried writing is a scene that's coming in book 3.
Oh,
It isn't even like anything that has like shown up in anything yet. And I went back and I re it's so bad. That first one, it was so bad. I was so proud of it too. I finished writing it, this whole chapter. The whole chapter, it was probably 500 words, right? So like in the Sun Serpent chapters are somewhere between like 1500 and the long chapters are like 5,000 words, like the really long ones.
mhm.
I try not to go over 3. 3 is where I try to cap myself. And so this is like just a little oomph or something. I got so excited. I finished writing it and I told my husband, I was like, okay, you want to hear it? He's like, all right. And so I read it and he was like, that, I mean, it's sort of like an outline. He's like, he's like, but I mean, it could be good. It could be good. You should keep trying. You
Keep
should
working
keep
on it,
trying.
honey.
Right. And he's an English teacher too. So that's sort of like, he's just like, okay. And I was like, all right. So then I went back and I made my world map out and I really came up with a plot and a whole outline of how I wanted the big thing. And then once I started plotting, it was like it couldn't stop. It just kept going and going. And I sat my best friend down for 2.5 hours at a Mexican restaurant. And I told her the story beginning to end of what I had figured out for the big plot. And she was just like, this is good. Like you should definitely like really try doing it. And so then I started researching because I'm a research junkie. I literally can't go at anything without trying to research it. And I looked at one, Jennifer Armentrout did
Mhm.
this Instagram series. It was like a ask me anything, my tips for authors kind of thing. And
Yeah.
she would go on and she would answer questions. And then every day for like 2 weeks straight, she would give a new piece of advice. And I was like, I was such a good little student. I just had my book out. I was just sitting there writing it all down.
Well, and she's the queen of fantasy too. She writes some amazing worlds.
Yeah, I'm a massive from Blood. I mean, Cal has got very Castile vibes. So
Yes, I
for
would agree with
sure,
that.
like she's definitely a major inspiration for me. When I went to a Polycon this last time, I brought Sun Serpent with me, and I had her sign the copy of Sun Serpent, and my dedication page for Sun Serpent says, "This book is dedicated to everyone who said so. Write it already."
Oh,
And then underneath it says, I did it. And so I went up to her and I was like, hey, I don't know if you remember, you were doing this Instagram series. I told you I've never written a book, but I had this idea. And you were like, okay, so go write it. Like, I was like, so here's my dedication on the book I did.
well,
And
and
she wrote underneath it, because she signed it for me. She wrote underneath it, she said, great, now go do it again.
oh gosh. Well, and I have to say that book does not read like a debut novel. It
Oh,
reads
thank
like
you.
a fully edited, well thought out, spent tons of time. Like it's very obvious that you did your research,
Oh,
right?
and
And
I really labored over it. I spent about 2 years working on that manuscript over and over and over again. It went through probably about 12 rounds of edits total.
wow. Yeah. And I think
Um,
that's the part that a lot of readers don't understand, right? Because even with some of these authors that have a year or two between books, I'm like, well, do you want quality or do you want quantity?
and I
Because
and I
I
think a
want quality.
big part of that too is I had some really amazing writer friends who agreed to beta read those first early drafts. Oh my God, the first draft of Sun Serpent, the Shelby Gunter. deserves an award because she was the friend of mine. We're in this readers writing romance Facebook group. If anybody out there wants to start writing, I highly recommend you check out this group. It's on Facebook. They have a Discord group. It is seriously the most amazing group of authors together, everybody cheering everybody else on, everybody helping. And I learned a ton from the people in there. That's where I met my first beta readers, were all in there. And she taught me so much about the mechanics of writing, things that I was doing wrong, suggestions for things, switching from third person point of view to first person point of view, splitting to dual narration, learning how to write deep first person point of view, which was something that I didn't even know was a thing. Like my background is I have 2 art degrees. I don't have a writing degree. I have 2
Right.
art degrees and an education degree, but
I
and a
swear we're
background in art
soulmates,
history.
Geneva, because I also have an art degree and an education degree.
And then also art history. I have an alter ego who also is an art history professor too.
Yeah.
But so like my point is that my background was not in writing. And so she helped me out a lot with that. I have a book right here, actually. This is how it's so like right. Naughty Words for Nice Writers.
My gosh,
Um
that.
this is such a good book. But this is the best writing advice, some of it that I got for editing actually came out of the back of this book. It is basically just this author's, hey, here's some suggestions for things that you should be paying attention to with the way that you write. And it's just like, it's here, naughty words to avoid, but it's not like dirty naughty words. It's like things like back, down, and up in your writing. And I went through this entire section of this book word by word, and I did a full document search. And I like, so every
Really?
time the word down was in my book, I looked to see if it was one of those things, because she says you don't say I sat down, you just say I sat, because it's not like you can sit up, or well, you can't sat up, right?
Right,
So
right.
you take the word down out, you can just say I sat, and it speeds up the pace of your writing, so you're not bogging it down with all these extra words that you don't need. And so I did that. I went through each word that she had in here, each phrasing that was suggested to avoid, and I pulled them all.
That's amazing. What a cool thing to have as you're writing your first book.
But then also this book is, and this was Stella Nova suggested this to me, who is the creator of the Readers Writing Romance Facebook group. But then there's also things in here that have helped a lot, that are also like nouns for kiss.
So we're getting past the throbbing member and
yes,
lick
exactly.
folds and all of
I'm
that.
not kidding, there's like 27 pages on spanking. So
I
if
wrote a
you
review earlier in the year, and one of the triggers was spanking, but then I put, but it's necessary. And it is. It's like a big part of I can't tell you why, but it is actually necessary. Well, speaking of spanking, you did just write a dark romance named Dark Oz. What can you tell me about that?
this is Dark Oz. It's right here. Hi. I guess I could have showed you the other two, but I have them sitting here too, but this one's on top, so it was easier to pick up. So a year ago, we were driving home from our summer vacation at the lake. It's like a 3.5 hour drive. And when we drive, we tend to listen to this one podcast. It's Cinema Story Origins. It started out as Disney Story Origins, and then he expanded. If anybody is a big fan of movies, but then also loves looking at the background of the stories that like formed those movies, he does a point by point plot comparison between the original story and the movies. And
Interesting.
I love it because it's not judgy in any kind of way either. For like it's not disparaging the movie for breaking from the tradition of the original stories. It's more just a look at comparison, and it's done with like sound effects, and his storytelling technique is just really great. He also does background on the authors, which I love. There's a whole episode specifically for Lewis Carroll. And I don't know. I really love that podcast. So every time an episode comes out, we listen to it as a family on our car ride. So that summer he had just released the 2-part episodes for Wizard of Oz. And I've been a Wizard of Oz fan forever. I had this, that's one of those early inspiration book things for me.
Right.
I basically wore out my copies of The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. And so I've been a huge Oz fan for forever. And then we're listening to it, and it might also be because one, I'm a mood reader, so I tend to be reading a dark romance and a fantasy and a contemporary romance, and probably also a comfort reread all at the same time,
Mhm.
depending on what my mood at the moment is. So I had gone deep down a Tate James rabbit hole, and I had been reading her entire backlist. I was like halfway through the Hades series, and so my head was very much in Why Choose Land,
Right.
and also
That's a good
also
place to
like
be, I gotta
the
say.
mafia-ish kind of world. So we're listening to this podcast, and I'm sitting there, I'm driving down the road because I drive us everywhere. And I'm like, here, I'm like, man, I was like, Wizard of Oz it's got like the perfect framework for Why Choose. And he's like, okay. He's like, how's that? I'm like, well, think of it. You got Dorothy. She's like traveling along with these three guys. I'm like, tell me that this is not why she's. I'm like, you've got the archetypal characters. You've got the funny one. You've got the one who pretends to be tough but really isn't, and you've got the cold one who doesn't know how to love. I'm like, are you kidding me? You literally just named the three
It's
archetypal
like
white
it was
characters,
literally written for this generation's Why Choose.
right? And he's like, okay. He's like, so how would you do it? And I'm like, sitting there, and like maybe 20 minutes later, I was like, I'd make it mafia. He's like, okay, mafia. It's like, yeah. I'm like, well, you think about it, I'm like, Oz is set up already. It's got these four quadrants, and you've got these
Mhm.
four corrupt people ruling each of the quadrants with this central figure in the middle. I'm like, come on, that's like mafia families kind of. And um it just kind of like, over the course of that ride, I literally plotted out that whole story as we're driving. I'm like, oh my god, and it could be this, and I had figured out the backstories of each of the guys.
Is your
And
husband like taking notes while you're driving at this time?
no, he's just sitting there living it up. And
You're
then
like, get out the iPad. I have stuff to say. Get it. We got to talk about this. Come on.
Siri is a good note taker for me. I have her, I'll just kick her on and have her start recording me when I've got ideas I don't want to lose. And
Well,
because
I
most of
don't
my
know.
good ideas come to me when I'm driving.
Well, but I don't know about you, but a lot of times I'll dictate something and then I'm like, wait, what was I trying to say right
Oh
there?
yeah, because she translates it really wrong. Really,
Right.
you should see her try to figure out what the word Illyria and Cal are.
Oh,
Half the
I can
time,
only
those two
imagine.
come out as really different names.
Yeah, yeah. Well, my last name's Eichenberger, so a lot of times you don't even want to know what it says sometimes. Well, that's exciting. I can't wait to read that. And it sounds like you've had a good release week too.
Yeah, it's doing really well, especially considering it's a new genre for me that I'm breaking out into, and it's the first book in a series. I think it's doing very well. It's pacing pretty similarly to the way that Sun Serpent started, maybe
Mhm.
just a little bit better. It's got more reviews up front than Sun Serpent had.
Will there
Uh,
be 4 books for the 4 quadrants?
no, there's going to be 3 books for Oz as I've got it plotted now. It should be a trilogy. And then I have a very loose follow-up series idea that would be a retelling of a different storybook, not Wizard of Oz, but
Mhm.
another beloved children's classic, and featuring a new set of characters that would continue the main plot forward. But Thea and the boys of Yellow Brick Taxi, they're done with the Dark Oz series when it's done.
Okay.
So not I guess unlike what other people out there in the genre, like Katie Roberts does that, where
Mhm.
like she does the story of there's the one couple, and then the plot continues with the next
Right.
couple. So it would be kind of like that.
Yeah, I love that formula too because then you can put little Easter eggs in from
Oh yeah,
previous
yeah, and you
couples
can
and stuff
bring
like
people
that.
back, and
Yeah.
it's allowing for storybook crossover too,
Mhm.
which my fantasy loving heart has wanted to cross over a couple stories for a really long time. So the
I can
idea of
only imagine what you're going to have plotted out by the time you get to Imaginarium Book Festival next year. I can't wait.
the plot bunny is a legitimate problem. I've got ideas for so many books. Sun Serpent's plotted out for about 6. books in that series, plus a prequel story of a beloved character that will fill in some blanks for
Can you tell us which character?
I haven't officially announced that yet, but
Okay. Okay.
you could probably be. I'm also really terrible at keeping secrets, so I've already told probably about a dozen people. But you could figure it out for whose backstory you would really want that I've left like blanks in their story on
Yeah.
purpose.
Okay, I think I know who that is.
Um and not only that, but his backstory will allow it'll allow other people who are in the story who are older to come back as being younger. So
Okay. Well, I'm
it's
excited now.
it's got good potential, but when his backstory comes out, it's going to directly affect the events of book 4. So
Okay.
it's his information are is important.
Okay, I can't wait. Well, let's do this. Let's go into our nerdy and dirty speed round. And
Yeah,
and
let's
what
do
I'm
it.
going to do is I'm going to give you a prompt and I want you to answer with the first thing that comes into your head, okay?
Okay, and I know
No.
that I've seen some of these ahead of time, but I literally also have zero short-term memory. So I really don't remember them. And I said to my husband, I was like, I probably should have looked at these before we sat down to do this. And he's like, well, you're going on now.
That's okay. It's more fun when you don't look, to be
It's
honest.
all right. It's okay.
Okay. What is the last song you listened to?
Nuh-uh by Jadis, and then it's in the Dark Oz soundtrack, and my kid's addicted to it, and it's literally what he asks for. He asks for my soundtracks to my books all the time, and I'm always like, those songs are kind of dirty, but it's okay. You're 7, you don't know.
Right. You don't know, right? What fictional character do you have a crush on?
This is so basic, but I've definitely got a crush on Rhysand.
We all
Um,
have a crush on
and
Rhysand. I get it.
Desmond Flynn too from the Bargamer series. Oh,
Oh my gosh. I
that what I
would
would let that man
say
do to me.
Desmond might trump Rhysand. He might. I mean, Desmond, I wish that there was more to that series, to be honest. I would pay good money for that. What is a book series you always recommend?
Besides the Bargainer, which I
Mhm.
literally just dropped, right now I am telling everyone on earth to go read Stay a Spell by Juliet Cross. It's a finished now complete 6-book series, PNR. It is, if you're looking for a paranormal palate cleansing style book, those books are just they're so good, and the audiobooks are really good. Aiden Snow like knocks it out of the park with those audiobooks, but they're just like low relationship angst, but still suspenseful a little bit. And they're hilarious and they're so relatable. And I love the characters, and her world building and the magic system is so good.
Okay, I'm gonna have to go put those on my TBR.
I love them.
What TV series should everyone watch?
Ah, let's see. So here's the thing. When I started writing, I stopped watching TV because I don't have time to do both.
Right.
So I haven't actually watched a new TV series that's come out in the last 2.5 years. And everybody's like, you haven't even watched season 2 of Mandalorian? No, I haven't.
I mean, I'll be honest, it got a little redundant. You're not missing that much. Okay, so name a book character you'd get nerdy and dirty with.
Oh, so I think I would love to get nerdy and dirty with Ray in my book, to be honest. I think she would, because she's such a reader, but I shouldn't be self-promoting. But honestly, I would love to be able to actually get to just know her as a person.
I think if you can write a character you're that interested in, that's some pretty good writing. So I do think you should self-promote. What is a food you refuse to eat?
I don't eat any kind of fish or seafood, which I live in Virginia now, but I used to live in Maryland, and everybody's crazy for crabs in Maryland.
Oh yeah.
And then they were always like, you don't eat crab. I was like, no, I don't eat any fish or
Kimberly
seafood.
Lemming in her books calls them sea spiders.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, which is why a lot of people don't eat it. If you could have any paranormal power, what would you want it to be?
Portal technology, vortexes.
Ooh, yeah.
We've my husband and I have this conversation about superpowers all the time, because like I'm a magic from a distance kind of person. I am a not get involved in the fight, but watch it and
Is
go
your vortex time or space?
space,
Okay.
like a spatial vortex. So I would like open up the vortex underneath the bad guy and he'd fall into the drill. Like that would be my way of fighting crime.
I
And then I
mean,
would
hey, it works.
instantly open up another one and be like, let's go to Japan for ramen.
We'll be right back. Don't worry about us. We'll be back in 45 minutes. Yeah. Do you prefer in a book smut or plot?
Can I choose both?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
You can.
but I love me, like, again, Laura Thalassa. I love me a hot book that's got an amazing plot.
Yep,
Yep.
100%. Do you prefer cake or pie?
I'm a fan of pie scream, which is pie with ice cream.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like I'm also a sucker for a really chocolatey cake, but then also pie. So,
So both smut, plot,
both
cake, and
a
pie.
plot with pie and cake.
Okay, so let's talk Cal and Illyria and your main character from Dark Oz. Tell me what their favorite band is.
Oh God. Wow. Okay, so this one was not on the list.
It was not.
Okay,
I
so
just
let's
popped it
see.
in.
All right, so let's see. So Cal would be like a 90s alternative rock, probably something like he
Gin
would like some,
Blossoms.
or like maybe like Pearl Jam. Although I do say Goo Goo Dolls, like in the second book on the playlist, Iris by Goo Goo Dolls is like has been Cal's song for so long for me. And I literally cannot hear that song without thinking about him. When
It's
I
a
was
beautiful
writing the
song.
chapter where he spills his heart about everything, that song was just playing on repeat in my head the whole time. So like, okay, so let's go Goo Goo Dolls. I guess that makes more
Okay,
sense.
yeah,
But
perfect.
Illyria, God, it's got to be like Lily Allen, maybe.
Yeah.
Like a really sassy kind of like something with like a little bit of edge to it. Um, Thea, who's my Dorothy character, um, maybe like Evanescence.
For
Something
sure. I can see that.
dark and gritty. It's got to be dark and gritty, but also with like a really strong female lead. And dark and gritty music with a female lead is not that common. So
No, it is not.
like,
Whatever happened to them?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I need to look that up. I'll put it in
Also,
the
I
show notes.
definitely just showed my age. I just picked like nobody current.
No, you want to know what's funny is my daughter got super into Evanescence last summer. She is about to turn 16, and I was like, I know, I liked them when they came out with this song a long time ago. But you know what? You're still not naming chick rock as old as I listen to, so don't feel bad about it.
I
Okay.
mean, like, okay, but like she would also really like Joan Jett. Okay, can we go? I'll go
Yeah.
back farther. Like,
Yeah.
I could definitely see her singing like Joan Jett or something like that. Like again,
Right.
like an edgy, strong woman. Or like Heart also,
Ooh, yeah. Heart's a
like
good one.
Barracuda for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about your writing. So, can you tell me a little bit about a scene that you have edited out of a book that you really wish you would have kept in?
Um, in Star Spear, I guess I need to start showing the other books. Here, look, Star Spear. There it is. Um, there was a scene that I wrote at the end of the book that was Illyria and Shock sparring. And
Ooh.
because he had this thing where he was like, well, if we're about to go fight like to the death, I should probably learn how you fight because I've never seen you fight. And so I wrote a whole sparring scene with the two of them. And it was hilarious. At one point, I had Shock sticking her up on a rack. Like she flips him on the ground. Same move she does on Cal earlier in the book. And then like as payback, he's basically like, okay, brat, here you go. And he like literally lifts her up and hangs her by her knife holster on a rack on the wall and leaves her there.
I love that. That's so
uh,
his character too.
so I really loved that chapter. But then my editor went through and she was like, you've already got a sparring chapter in here. And I was like,
Mhm.
well, I'm not cutting strip sparring. That's staying. And she's like, okay, well,
I think you
the
just got more readers with that phrase. I'm not
yes,
cutting the strip sparring. It's
I'm not
staying.
cutting it. And then I had one of my other beta readers was like, it's basically fluff. It does nothing to push the plot forward. And I was like, but it's fun fluff.
It's
So
fun
it's
fluff.
staying.
That can be a special edition bonus chapter.
So
So,
I kind of folded that chapter into the Cavaliria sparring chapter, and I added in the scene with Shock at the end of the strip sparring chapter to kind of make up for the fact that I cut a Shock because I knew people love him so much, and I
he's so
knew
great.
I knew that if I cut more of him out, they're going to be like, he's barely in the book anyway.
Right. So, can you give me a super specific detail about one of your characters that does not affect the story in any way, but that you really like, that makes you love them nonetheless?
So I mean, some of the super specific stuff is already talked about. Like, so God, the thing I love the most is about Shock, and I can't tell you it yet because it has to do with his love story. Um,
Okay.
but
I'll
his
wait.
moment's coming. His moment is coming.
Okay, I can't wait.
And but there is a reason why he grows the lavender all the time.
Hmm,
And every time there's all these moments, like he's always got like lavender in his hands or twigs, and
right.
like he's growing it like everywhere he goes. That so the lavender bit for me with him is one of I love it so much.
Okay, I
Um
was wondering about that. So, keep reading.
yep, so next book.
Okay. Well, let's do
Um
a couple of random questions. Can you tell me the most embarrassing thing you've ever said in public?
embarrassing thing I've ever said in public. Like every word that comes out of my mouth is embarrassing. Um and like nothing really like salacious that's been really embarrassing. Um, I've like randomly called people the wrong names a few times. I once uh I once accused somebody that was of being in my room, my class, my alter ego as a teacher, in my classroom, who was not supposed to be in there. And then it was just that they had gotten their hair cut and I didn't recognize them, and they like Clark Kented me.
That's pretty hilarious,
And
actually.
I was so strictly like, you're not supposed to be here. And I had this like whole room of people being like, yeah, they are.
Yeah, do you not recognize that person you see
But
every
it's
day?
been months. But
Okay,
yeah.
have you ever had a paranormal experience or seen a ghost? Or do you believe in
Yeah.
stuff?
Yep, I have. When I was a senior in high school, so I was probably like 17, maybe 18, my parents had gone away for the weekend and I was home alone, and I had always been kind of like creeped out in my house anyway. But I was home alone by myself, and because I was creeped out, my mom was like, just stay in our bedroom. You can lock the door. I was like, okay. So I grabbed the cat, I grabbed the dog, I brought them in the room with me. I locked the bedroom door. I'm just like laying all terrified, like at home by myself at night in this big creepy old house. And then I heard this like walking up the stairs, like their bedroom, the stairs kind of like wrapped around their bedroom going up, and I could hear walking up the stairs. And I was like, what's that? And I like it could have been my imagination, except for the dog like lift his head and like looked at him. I'm like, you hear that too? I'm like, you hear that too? And he like looks at me, and like you can see his little ears go up and everything, you know? And I'm like sitting there, I'm like, oh my God, right? And then all of a sudden, like there was this banging on the bedroom door. I'm talking like bang, 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 like somebody like just like pummeling the side of the door. And the dog starts barking and I'm screaming. I'm like,
So, what did your parents think?
they were just like, oh, that happens.
Ah,
My mom used to run a new age shop. So we grew up with a lot of witchy stuff in our
she
household.
probably brought something home,
And
is what happened from the shop, right?
well, I think there might have been some maybe like residual spirity type energy. It was a pretty old house.
Yeah.
Um that
Whew,
might
no,
have
thank
been
you.
there. I don't know, but I'm also for a lot of things, I'm also a huge skeptic. And but I'm just sort of like there's like a 0.1% of things that can't be explained kind of person, and
Sure.
that I'm willing to believe.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And also, I was home alone, and something was banging on my bedroom door when the house was locked.
Right,
Like,
right,
that definitely
100%.
happened.
You can't really explain that one away.
Right.
So, as a researcher, what is your zombie apocalypse plan?
We're going on a boat. We're going out on a boat and either staying in the water or going to like a small island somewhere, which I know is what they do at the end of Dawn of the Dead, and it does not end well for them. But that's our plan. That or going out into the middle of nowhere up in the mountains and just staying like up in the mountains. I grew
Now,
up backpacking, so my outdoor survival skills are actually decent.
have
And
you
my
watched
husband's a
Midnight Mass yet?
survivalist.
Have
Huh?
you watched that on Netflix, Midnight Mass?
No, not yet. Again,
Okay.
anything that's come out in the last 2.5 years, I haven't seen.
Okay, so yeah, that does have vampires in it and it has to do with an island. So you need to watch it and report back and tell us what you think.
Noted. Noted.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So tell me what you're working on next. I know you have a lot of irons in the fire. So what are you writing next? What's being published?
I'm working right now on Oz 2. I'm attempting to quick release Oz 2 and 3, with about 90 days in between those books, and then I'm bouncing back over to Sun Serpent.
Okay.
And that just has to do a little bit with the difference in market for dark romance
Mhm.
versus romantasy. Basically, essentially, the advice I was given by several fairly successful authors in the genre was that um, dark romance is sort of like a quick and dirty fling. You want it
Mhm.
fast and quick, right? And but like romance is like a long-term relationship, and you're willing to stick around for the long haul for
That's
however
really
hard and long
true.
it takes.
Yeah.
And so she was saying, she was like, if you wait and try to put a year out in between Oz books, and because I was gonna stagger the two series together, she's like, you do that, you're gonna lose your Oz audience altogether. So you should just try to really push that through and push Sun Serpent back just a little bit, and you're probably going to have a more successful series for both. And I was like, okay, that's what we're
And
doing.
just
And
for
then now I'm like sitting here going, oh my god, 90 days is such a short period of time.
yeah, that is a short period of time. Are you, just for our listeners, are you looking for arc readers for your Oz series?
Always, I
Okay.
am always looking for arc readers. If anybody out there likes a dark wide shoes mafia retelling,
Where
um
can they find that information to sign up to arc read?
The ARC application for Dark Oz 2 will be opening probably first week of November, and it'll be on my website, and I'll have on all social media, it's on my link tree, so you can just click my link on any social media platform and it'll be right there. I haven't actually created and opened the application for the next book yet. But you can also join my newsletter, and as soon as that comes out, I'll blast it out to everybody. But giving is my love language. So
Well, that's nice as an author. So I know that you're going to be at Imaginarium in the spring, and we're going to see you there too, which I'm super duper hyped about. But what other projects or events are you doing next year?
honestly, Imaginarium's it for right now. I've applied for a couple other events. I'm like, if the powers of be at a Polycon should happen to hear or see this, I'm available.
Yeah. I'm like, me too. I'll be your PA. No problem at all.
And a
Okay.
Polycon, like I've been going to that since for like the last four Polycons. Like I'm an old school Polycon fan.
It must be those witchy vibes from your mom that enables you to get tickets.
No, I just used to go, so because I have to get up at like 4:30 to go to work, right? I have like an hour drive to get there, and the education world starts early. And so I would like get up real early, and then I used to get on the trade sale thing, and then I
Yeah.
found twice tickets that got posted at like 4:30 a.m. And I was like, oh, nobody's here. I'm like,
Mine.
please.
So, where do you prefer that people buy your books? Do you like them to buy directly from you or from Amazon, or what's best for you as the author?
I mean, I'm happy with people buying from wherever they're comfortable buying. I mean, like technically, I guess I probably make the most money if you buy it from me. If you want a signed book as a trophy for on your shelf, like because I'm a book trophy person.
Me too.
I literally lied to myself saying that my Kindle Unlimited subscription was to save myself money. It's not. I read more and then I buy everything I
And
read.
then I buy what I read.
Yes.
Same exact problem.
So
100%.
it's It's a lie I tell myself.
Right, right. Hey,
Um,
you know what I say? We're supporting the arts. We're buying
yes,
authors'
you know what?
books. We're putting food on the table for
It's
people.
true. It's totally true. And if people out there really like supporting indie authors, Kindle Unlimited, authors only get paid the first time you read a book on there. So if you love a book and you plan on reading it again, you should buy the digital copy of the book after you've read it on Kindle Unlimited.
Oh, okay. So
Because
even if they buy the digital one, it counts as a new transaction.
yes, yeah, it counts as
Okay.
a new transaction, but authors will only be paid for a page when it's read once. So it doesn't matter if you read a page 10 times, the author's only being paid for one page read.
Ah, okay. That's good to
Which
know.
I did not know until I became an author, and then it got explained to me, and I was like, oh wow. I'm like, but if people are reading,
Yeah.
but
And a
no,
lot of fantasy readers reread their books.
oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a classic rereader. I do these like comfort rereads where I'll read just the relationship arc between two specific characters, and I'll skip all the in between that happens and just go to the next relationship-y type moment. And then so I'll sit there for like an hour and I'll just have highlight read all of From Blood and Ash.
There's some good scenes in that book. So, okay. So, one thing we like to do at the end of every show is this is called our nerdiest thing. So, we'd like to talk about what our nerdiest thing of the week is. It can be something you did, something you read, something you experienced. And so, we would love to know what your nerdiest thing of the week is.
My nerdiest thing of the week. I brought the Star Wars Funko Pop Christmas Advent calendar last night and it showed up today.
Already?
Already, I was really excited.
Okay. I have to know if
It was
you've
on
popped any
clearance for like
open.
20 bucks though. It was on sale. It was like a Lightning Prime deal thing.
Wow. I wish I had known about. I need to go
But
look and see if it's still
it's
around.
got like a red Darth Vader.
Or really? So, how
Like a
many
Christmas.
boxes have you popped open already,
I
Geneva?
have none. I have zero self-control, but it's currently locked up in the spare bedroom's closet. So
Is that a thing you tell your husband, like, do not let me touch the advent calendar? Yeah. Yeah.
yes, it goes right next to. I also get a cheese advent calendar every year. So
I like the wine ones personally.
oh
That's
yeah, I like wine. Also, he gets beer. He gets like a German beer. It's at Costco.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I can't thank you enough for your time. This has been so much fun, and I can't wait to see what comes out next in the Dark Oz series. That's been on my TBR since you announced it, and so I need to go download it. It's on KU, right?
On Kindle, all my stuff's on Kindle Unlimited.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect. And then we will see you at Imaginarium next
I know.
year.
I'm so excited. I can't wait to
Me
see you
too.
guys.
Can't wait. All right. Well, have a great night. Thank you so much again. Bye.
Bye.